Boo-doo, boo, boo-doo, boo, boo. That's our intro.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. It's been a while. All three of us, have been super busy in our lives with business stuff, but don't worry, we didn't go anywhere. We just needed the right time to come back together, and we are on episode 6, right, boys? Episode 6, and today we wanted to talk about financial fitness. We kind of teased that in episode 5 leading into this. So today's about financial fitness, kind of what that means to us, and let's just kind of dive right into it, right, boys? So today's theme, I think past 5 episodes, guys, has been more educational, maybe like sciencey, nerdy on some stuff that we like to talk about and some topics we like to talk about. I think today maybe is a little bit more of a motivational topic that we have discussed with our clients, with other trainers over time, of like what financial fitness means in your kind of trajectory of life. So one talk I've had with my clients, guys, is like, hey, if you're not constantly depositing into your health savings account, and it's always in the red, your health is probably in the red. Biomarkers are in the red. Doctor tells you you got to eat better. Doctor tells you your cholesterol's high, blood pressure, all that stuff. And then next thing you know, you're like, man, I've really got to start working on myself. And like, how do you start working on yourself? How do you get yourself in the green? Right? It's like, let's take a budget. We want to save 20 grand. That's our goal this year, Cody, is we want to save 20 grand. Like, how do we do that? What are some things that we start doing in our life, cutting back some spending, trying to make some more money, trying to make better conscious decisions? Well, now let's compare that to, I want to lose 20 pounds in the next 6 months. I want to put on 20 pounds in the next year from working out. How do I do that? So I think that's what we want to talk about today is how do we get there? What does that mean to us? And I think Cody has some really good analogies that, we kind of talked before this on where we're going to go. But Cody, how do you feel with constantly making that deposit into that health savings? And like, what are some good decisions every single day? And what does that look like to you?
Well, I guess first I would just say that like what we're talking about is really just like an analogy. The financial piece of this is really just a way for us to like reframe or just like shift perspectives when it comes to nutrition. I feel like a lot of people generally feel a little bit maybe more comfortable with income, expenses. You got your bank account, your health savings account, like you mentioned, Tyler. So if we can like rely on that framework of like people understand it a little bit better, then that can maybe help paint a clearer picture for what it means for nutrition. And the thing I would start with is if you are already really good with money, and that could mean a lot of different things, but if you feel confident with budgeting, if you're financially free, whatever it means to you, then you already have the skill set to be successful with nutrition. I like to think of, going back to your original question, I like to think that broadly speaking, and I don't really like super binary thinking, but when it comes to like our health, I think we have like a couple buckets. And so we have like net positives, we have net negatives, and then we probably have like a neutral bucket, right? That doesn't really impact anything. And when it comes to like our fitness, our nutrition, all of the choices and behaviors around those things, that's really just like us putting a penny or casting a vote into one of those buckets or those piggy banks, right? And so generally over time, we just want to put more pennies in the net positive bucket. And I'll shoot off a couple things here that would constitute that positive bucket or the piggy bank, but it's not going to be surprising to anybody because these are things that we probably already know. But making sure you're sleeping enough, getting hydrated, drinking enough water. We're lucky, but water's free, it's clean, it's safe to drink, getting enough steps. Like Tyler, you mentioned earlier, like walking's free. It really is. And when I say enough, like we can quantify those things later on, but eat enough vegetables. Our parents have always told us that. They're right. Eat your veggies, eat your fruit.
Hasn't changed. Like it's been the same for like 100 years.
Cody's a big proponent on sleep. Cody always brings up sleep. Like we probably need an episode just on like sleep parameters. And we'll put some nice music to.
The one thing I'll say on sleep, and then I'll hand it off to you or Joseph, is sleep is like the closest thing that we have to cheat codes, right? For life. If you like Matthew Walker, what he says about sleep is the worst thing that happens after a good night's sleep is you wake up feeling rested. That's the worst thing that happens after a good night's sleep. And everybody's like, well, that's not a bad thing. And it's like, exactly. Only good things happen when you prioritize your sleep. Only good things. So Tyler, back to you. Does that answer the question about like, how do we make
that was good. That was good. We love analogies here. And we're really just trying to bang home this analogy on what that means. Joseph's had this conversation a million times with clients and said some really cool stuff kind of off air before we chatted. So when you're trying to move that needle, Joseph, with a client, like we have this conversation all the time, is a lot of people we've gotten, and I've talked about this recently, is we always think us as a society has said, okay, workouts are an hour. And if we don't have that hour, we just say, okay, I'm going to skip that. Well, that's really weird. Like if we've somehow pigeonholed an hour as a workout, but then if you cannot carve an hour out of your day, you just say, no, I'm not going to do it. That's like, okay, well, I want to save $1,000 this month. Man, I can only save 500. So screw it. I'm going to go spend the 500 instead of save the 500. That's really weird. Like we've got to say, okay, I don't have an hour to work out today. I've got 30 minutes. I'm going to strap on some shoes. I'm going to pick 3 exercises. I'm going to bang them out, deposit into my health savings account, and then off we go.
I like that analogy. And I also like coupons analogies. Like when you're grocery shopping and you see $1 off, you snag that coupon. It's just $1. But like same concept, like you only have 30 minutes to work out. Who cares? It's still 30 minutes. It's still going to give you a net positive, experience. So whether you're saving $1 or whether you're moving for 30 minutes that you would not have, or 10 minutes, right? Doesn't really matter. And Cody loves this and super sidebar topic, but I was on a conference last week with a guest speaker that will be coming, and they were talking about minimum effective dose. And I was like, Cody will love you guys. And so, so it's like, and I literally told them that. They're like, who's Cody? And I was like, no, don't worry about it. And so
weirdo, super weirdo. You'll meet him.
And so, talking about minimum effective dose of, and Cody was talking about sleep and talking about hydration and talking about steps, right? And so everyone's like, well, how much more, right? Like just do a little bit more, do a little bit more. Do like, should I get 8,000 steps, 10,000 steps, 12,000 steps? It's okay. But whatever you can do right now is better than nothing at all. Right. Tyler and I have been crazy busy. And so the other day I sent a picture on social media of my steps, and I had 900 steps for the day. Like terrible, very terrible. So what do I do tomorrow? I try to get 5,000. I was like, I've got to take the dog for a walk. I've got to walk to and from, the back of the grocery store to the back of the parking lot into the front. Like, what can I do to get in more steps? And so I think a lot of times we get in that mentality Tyler's talking about is, if I don't have an hour, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to skip it. If I can't save $1,000 right now, I'm not even going to try. But minimum effective dose, starting small, and again, depositing a penny every single day or saving $1 every single day. And you see it all the time with like these marketing advertisements of, we can save you $500 a year. Well, what does that equate to a day? Like $1.10? Like that's not even like anything to worry yourself about. But we see the end result of $500 a year and we get so excited. But in the moment, we always push it aside. Like, it's just this, it's just that. But flip your mindset, right? And so what does that look like of, yeah, it is $1. But if I do $1 every single day, look at the big return at the end of the year. And health is slow. I think you get unhealthy really slow, and you also get healthy really slow. And so we have to really like take that in consideration as well. This is a pretty slow process if you want it to be worthwhile, right? Don't get so discouraged if you can't give an hour, if you can't go. And we talk about this in a previous podcast of, if I'm not sore after a workout, it was probably a bad workout, right? Like, no, like it's not how it works. So that's my little caveat on that.
I think you kind of nailed there, Joseph. We talked about the all or nothing on the workout side. Joseph and I are heavy with our nutrition businesses, and we see this in nutrition all the time. I see it personally all the time, right? Like we have this plan of, hey, I'm having this for breakfast, whatever, lunch, whatever, dinner, whatever. Say something just goes awry at 9 or 10 a.m., right? And our breakfast kind of got shot. How many of our clients, how many of us ourselves are like, plan was shot, I got to go to this place to get screw lunch, screw dinner, just screw everything today that was on my plan, right? It's all or nothing with nutrition as well. And that happens all the time, where it's like, hey, I tell my clients all the time, listen, I don't want you making A pluses every day. Like we get a new client, they want to lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds, whatever, right? I don't want you making A pluses in regards of your health and fitness every single day. Well, why, Tyler? Why don't you want me making A pluses? Because it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. It's sustainable for about a month, maybe. maybe, right? And then what happens after you make an A+ for a month? You usually restricted a lot of the fun things in your life. You were very regimented. And next thing you know, you're like, you know what? This isn't sustainable. And bam, you just go off the deep end, right? That's trying to budget too much every single month to where you cut back on so many expenses that you're now not living the normal life that you are accustomed to, right? However, if you can cut back just a few expenses, save a little bit more money here and there, it's more sustainable. Next thing you know, you look back in 2 or 3 years and you're like, man, I've saved way more than I thought I was, yet my life hasn't really changed. It's the exact same thing with health and fitness. If you can just I tell my clients, I want you making B's every single day for 6 months because it's sustainable. I was not an A student by any stretch of the imagination in school
Have you ever
because
talked to an A student? Like, get a college person and be like, do you got a 4.0? How great is your life right now? They're like, I hate my life. They're like, I study all the time.
yeah,
Like,
I just use
why you have
those A+
4.0?
people to help me make B's. So you've got to like really find things that are sustainable over time. And in our talk before this talk right now, we talked about the age at which you start saving, right, boys?
Let's
If
talk about compound interest.
compounding interest over time, golly, you know, when your financial planner sits you down at like 21, they're like, if you save $100 a month starting at 21, by 65 you got $8 million in the bank, and you're like, that math doesn't add up like at all. Like, that makes zero sense. Please tell me how that. And they pull out their calculator and their spreadsheets and all that stuff, and I don't know if it's hocus pocus or not, but let's just do it fitness wise, because I know that's not hocus pocus. You start working out at 21, by the time you keep working out until you're 50, you're gonna look really good. All right, both internally, externally. You start waiting to work out till you're 45 because you haven't done anything working out your entire life, working on what you're eating, how you're moving, and all that. If you don't start till you're 45 or 50, man, you're behind the 8 ball, and you may not be able to retire as soon as you want to, right?
Sure.
So y'all have gotten this, right? So Cody, you first. You get a dude that's 45 years old, hasn't worked out since he was like 21, 22, right? And he's like, man, back in the day, I used to be able to I'm like, I don't care. I do not care. You're 45. Let's start doing what you do now. So let's take a client, right, Cody? It's 45, male, female. What are some things they're scared to start investing? They're scared to start working on themselves. What are some good first steps that they can do? Because they just haven't been in the game for 25 years.
That's a good question. And there's a common saying, or maybe is it an idiom? I don't know. It helps paint a really good picture, and ultimately like helps overcome some of the resistance that we often feel, like to start investing or to start saving or to start working out. And it's something, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, if I butcher this saying, but the best time to plant a tree was like 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. With that 45-year-old client who they used to work out, they're starting to work out again 20 something years later. And I think the most important thing is, like you said, Tyler, you just meet them where they're at. Like, what can we do right now? Right. And that can be challenging, like creating that departure from like what they used to do. And there's these expectations or whatnot surrounding that. And I've even seen this just with COVID, right? Like, y'all have probably heard like before COVID, XYZ, right? Like my schedule, my physique, my routine, my meals. And it's like, it's no longer pre-COVID. Like, we're after that. So we need to like create a plan for now. And so that's it. You just meet them where they're at, and you start with the things that are going to produce results, maybe with minimum effective dose or based on their preferences and whatnot today. And then you just make it fun so they enjoy the process.
That's what I was going to ask you that, maybe if you go back to episode 1, you can figure out where I used to work. But where I used to work at, every client who walked through the door, you had to do like this fit test. Every single one. And it was like squats, push-ups, pull-ups, step-ups, like to measure your heart rate. And there was like one more, right? Every single person had to do it. And like that was their, like, let's introduce you to exercise by forcing you to do these 5 exercises, whether you like them or not, whether you wanted to do them or not. And so I think when you get someone who is like, if they have a past experience with exercise, in your example of, hasn't worked out since he was 21 and now he's 40, what did you like to do in the past? Like, what was some of your favorite things that you had tried in the gym? Let's just start there. let me just get you doing some workouts and some exercises that you actually enjoy. And not to dog on CrossFit, but like if you're new to fitness and you like have never worked out a day in your life and you think that you're going to go look like a CrossFit athlete, so you join a CrossFit gym, like that's probably not a great decision, right? Of just like, let me just jump off the deep end. And so whether you hire a coach or not, just do a little research and figure out like about yourself. What do you like to do? Like, what do you like to do? Because there is no one exercise that's going to like completely pivot your health, right? If you're like, okay, well, I need to run or my heart's not going to be healthy. What about walking? Could you walk? What about a Stairmaster? What about cycling? What about a rower? What about swimming? What about like, right? Like, does it have to be running? And you're like, or you're like, I gotta get a nice butt, so I've got to deadlift. But what if you got a bad back and you can't deadlift? And so how are you gonna get in? Like, could you hip bridge? Could you lunge? Could you squat? Could you step ups? Could you like? And so I think a lot of times we get really attached to this one size fits all, or they're doing it, so I have to do it, or they look like that, so I need to do what they're doing if I want to look like that. And it's just not the case. And in order to, going back to financial investments, like start where you're at. And a lot of that is what's doable for you and what's likable for you. So if I said, hey, I need you to invest $500 a month to retire at this spot. And you're like, I ain't got $500 a month. Well, my advice was like, did you know good? Right. But if I was like, hey, you could do one of two things. You could say, what do you have that you could put aside? And so how much money a month could you put? Maybe it's $50, maybe it's $20, doesn't really matter. Okay, let's start there. So that's option number one. So how much time a day, pivoting back to health and fitness, how much time a day do you have to exercise? 10 minutes? Great, let's start there. 15 minutes? Great, let's start there. You got an hour on some days? Cool, let's pick those days. Let's start there. And then the second one is, what could we cut back on that we probably don't need, but in a minimum dose, right? I'll tell you two big ones: cell phone time, TV time. Two things. Cut those out,
For sure.
right? Reduce it, right? And so now you could
we hate
pivot.
them.
It's so funny. No one has time to exercise, but you've never missed your favorite sporting team play a game.
Everybody's watched
Ooh.
that new Dahmer series like no one's business.
Oh
They
my
ain't got time to
God.
go run around the block, do they?
But they've watched
Wild.
12 episodes.
Wild.
So I'll play devil's advocate really quick, kind of.
Uh-oh.
I think there is value for a lot of people, and how much of the time that we're talking about, that's probably debatable. But to just like turn your brain off, watch a TV show that you enjoy, like I'm all for it and I love it. Now, if you're Netflix marathoning like 6 hours a day and you can't find time to like carve out 10, 15, 30 minutes for exercise 3 or 4 times a week, I'm not coming at this from like a place of judgment, but like my question would be like, what are your priorities? What's your why? What are your goals? What's the resistance that you're feeling? If you have 6 hours to devote towards something that's not moving you in the direction you want to go in, how do we like carve a little bit of that out so that we can, right?
So Cody, you're speaking of, and I was about to ask you this. You remember before we hopped on this call, you were talking about, okay, like you're talking as if you are my fitness planner right now. I'm taking the word financial planner and I'm putting fitness planner in there. Okay. Because what would a financial planner do? They're real with you. Like they lay it out there. They're like, man, I come to Cody, you're my financial planner right now. I say, man, like this is what I want to retire at. This is what I make. This is what I do. This, like, you got to open up Pandora's box and you're looking at every penny in my life and you're telling me how I can make better choices with all the pennies that I make, right? And you're super okay with that. Now let's take the word finance out and put fitness planner, your coach, right? You would then look at that client and be like, let's be real. What does your screen time look like? What does your TV time look like? Okay, now let's look at, what does your fitness life look at? How many calories are you eating? Have you ever tracked that? Do you even know what a macro is? And so now you're getting into those details of like, hey, let's start planning this bad boy out and be real with it. Yet there's this stigma about tracking calories, tracking macros. Are you working out for an hour? Are you tracking your thing? Does your heart rate monitor? Like all these things, right? Why do we feel weird about that? Yet you can go to a financial planner and tell them every penny you make and how much you spend it on what. It's weird. So as Cody, as my fitness planner, like where are you looking? You look at Tyler's brochure for the week and you're like, bro, we got to clean that up.
It's funny. Like I made a post about it today. that was talking about accountability. My financial planner is not texting me every day asking me if I saved money, right? And I have one. I pay one. They're not bothering me. Hey Joseph, how much money did you save this month? Hey Joseph, did you cut back on spending on sushi, which is my biggest expense? Bang energy drinks, my second biggest.
Cody's right behind you. Cody's probably first big expense is probably melatonin for sleep. And then second, I'm joking. That is a joke.
Pillows and mattresses, man.
pillows, pillow toppers, mattress, temporary peanut, and all that. Anywho, but yes, Joseph, go. I'm sorry. Go ahead. That was popped into my mind.
I laughed way too hard at melatonin. Like my financial advisor's not texting me every day. I think a lot of times when you have a great coach or a great financial planner, I'll never forget the first time I sat down with one and they said, let's paint out the life of your retirement. Let's see what that looks like, right? Like, you want a new car? Are you gonna want to move? Are you gonna want to travel? Like, what are you gonna want when you retire? And so I, say yes and no and yes and no. And they say, okay, well, based off of your yeses and nos, it looks like you're going to need $200,000 a year to survive, right? And so if you need $200,000 a year from 65 until 90, here's how much money you need in retirement, right? And so let's look at how you're saving right now and see if it's going to get you there. And the answer was no, not even close. like you're not. And so a great financial advisor, a great fitness planner would say, hey, like, let's look at a life that you would enjoy. Like, and so that's kind of digging deeper, like, what are your priorities? What is your why? Right. And let's figure out how we can get there. And some of it might be uncomfortable. Some of it might be, hey, you've been watching 2 hours a day on Netflix, 2 hours of social media scrolling time. If you don't know, your phone will tell you exactly how much time you spend on Facebook.
Reminds me every week.
It's wild. And let's start that way. Let's cut back. Right. And now a piece of kind of this, a new world that is evolving right now are like health coaches, right? They're not like a little bit fitness, a little bit nutrition, a little bit lifestyle. Right. And I think that's really good because it's like, well, who do I talk to about my life? Right. If it's not a therapist. Right. And so my fitness coach is my fitness coach and my nutrition coach is my nutrition coach. But like, what about all the other stuff? But I do think that whether you're a fitness coach or a nutrition coach, you need to be having these lifestyle conversations with all of your clients, or you're not going to get anywhere.
One thing that it makes me kind of sad sometimes, y'all, is it doesn't really matter the age, right? Because I've had clients that are in their 30s, I've had clients that are in their 40s, clients that are in their 50s, right? And they want to lose X amount, let's just call it 40 pounds, right? We're together for 4, 5, 6 months, 8 months, whatever, and they're really not seeing quite the progress that they want. They're frustrated. There's like, life is difficult, lots of things coming up, and we're working through it. We're trying. We're just not getting there. And say they had that goal of 40 pounds and they're only 5 pounds. Like, we're kind of stagnant. We can't really figure out what's going on. It's a lot of factors. And let's call this person 40. Okay. And I've had this multiple times that they just give up. And I'm like, you're 40. What's the alternative? Let's say you live to 80. You've now given up for 40 more years. And so there's this like pressure to get to this goal that they want to get to. I'm like, okay, you got 40 pounds to lose. What if you got there when you were 50? What if it took you 10 years to reach this optimal health, lose the weight that you want to? Would you rather that, or would you rather give up and be 60 pounds overweight in a few more years because you gave up? And it makes me really, really sad. Some people were able to fight through the weeds and come to that and have a realization. Some people, they just give up, right? And so it makes me really sad, because it makes me really sad for not only them, but then maybe they have kids, maybe they have family, and now you're giving up on your health because you're not getting to the place that you want to get, right? It's like, okay, you want to save X amount of money. Well, you're not going to get there in a year, right? But if you work on it for 10 years, you might get there. And it's one thing that I've been trying to fight through myself as a coach, is these people giving up on themselves, realizing that like 35 is crazy young, 40 and 45 and 50 is crazy young. The writing's on the wall. It's over. I can't do anymore. You don't have to be a professional athlete when you're 50. You just got to move and eat well and do all those things. That's one thing I wish people looked at more, is being in your 40s and being in your 50s is super young, and to not give up because A, you haven't started for a long time. B, you're just not seeing the progress that you want. Or just C, they think that there's a proverbial finish line that we've talked about a million times times that you just get to run across when you do reach that goal of fitness. Think about finance, right, guys? Is like we get to that number, like you can retire because you've done all these things. However, we would probably all agree you should be working out until you die. And so that's one of those things that there is no proverbial finish line for fitness. I've got 2 clients right now in their 70s, and we work on getting as strong as we can. What's the fountain of youth to y'all, fitness wise?
Strength.
Sleep.
More melatonin.
Getting strong and sleeping, right, Cody?
No, so within like the exercise realm of things, so like setting aside maybe like nutrition and like recovery and like social support and community and whatnot, definitely resistance training. Resistance training is the closest thing we have to the fountain of youth, the silver bullet, if you will.
It's wild you talk about that, Tyler, because I have a client who's upper 50s and a fantastic athlete. And again, if I'm where he is at when I'm 58, 59, like great. But if I'm like a fraction of where he's at, I'm doing all right, you know? And so we were at church and we were moving a bunch of stuff around, and there was like a 30-year-old who was like, can't do that. You know, I got a bad back or I'm weak and I can't work out and blah, blah. And good old 58-year-old over here, I'm not going to say any names, but good old 58 was like, I got that. Like, let me pick that up for you. I'm got it. Like, right. He's almost double your age and he is doing way more than you are. And so I think kind of going, I always have like two things happen. One, you've never experienced it ever. So you've never really been healthy or strong or mobile or whatever the case may be. So you think it's impossible, right? And so that's number one, is you've never had like the self-confidence to try and attempt it. Or maybe you did it once and you got shot down, or it was too hard. And so you gave up. And so you're like, I'm never doing it again. Or two, you look at other people and it kind of like turns like, I can never be like that. And so it's like either internal or it's external, right? Like internally, you're like, I've never worked out a day in my life, so why start now? Or those people have genetics, and Cody talked about this earlier before we hopped on, the genetics of it. And so I'm not gonna because they look like that, I can never look like that, you know? And so, but I think both of those are a little BS. And so going back to Tyler's point of what if it takes 10 years? Who cares? Like, would you rather be 40 pounds down in the next 10 years or 60 pounds overweight in the next 10 years? Like, take your pick. And when we talk about financial fitness and financial freedom and all that good stuff, anything is better than nothing. And I think that's tough. It's like, if you think about retirement, what does retirement look like to you? Because it's probably not sitting on the couch all day. Maybe you're a gardener or a painter or a vacationer, or you want to go exploring or whatever the case may be. Most retirements look pretty active. And so how do you expect to enjoy your retirement without taking care of yourself for the last 20 or 30 years? And then a lot of times we get really selfish with our health. But when you retire, are people going to have to take care of you, or can you take care of yourself? Because if you're going to retire and you just, my kids can take care of me, or my friends can take care of me, or whatever the case may be, like, that's a really selfish thing, because now you're interrupting other people's life and other people's health and other people's finances, because they're probably going to have to support you financially as well. And that's pretty selfish. But when you talk about like, hey, who's the most important people in your life? It's probably the same people that you're going to hurt later on by not taking care of yourself right now.
Yeah, it comes along those lines. We've talked about this before. Shout out all the moms out there that are super busy running their kids to practice and doing all that. I want all the busy parents out there to understand and realize that, just like you said, Joseph, maybe into more of earlier in life, that if you don't pour into yourself, you cannot pour into others. If you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot take care of others. Moms out there, I know y'all are super women, you're super busy, but unless you're taking care of yourself, you're not gonna be able to take care of your family as long as you want to, you know? And then just setting an example for those around you with your kids, and all that. We talked about this before the podcast too, is okay, Tyler, like I don't have the money for a gym membership or whatever. Like, okay, like Lifetime Fitness, Equinox, that's $160 a month. It's $200 a month, right? Planet Fitness is $10 a month. Walking is free. There's a lot of different ways to be fit. I think this is weird, y'all. And I really don't know how I want to like paint this picture. I think it is weird. And we're talking about strength being the fountain of youth, sleep, all that stuff. It is really weird. I know I'm not the strongest human on earth. I will never be the strongest human on earth, right? But I think it is weird for me not to feel ready for certain situations that come about that I just maybe need to be strong for, right? If something falls on a family member of mine, my first instinct will be, can I go and lift that off of them? And I feel like that's because I think I am strong enough to do so. And I think there are people out there that if something falls on a family member or a situation arises, they don't even think if they can lift it. They know they can't lift it. And they know they cannot lift it because they have not done the things in life to prepare them for a situation that comes about. And that makes me sad. I think that needs to be a lot of the reason people do the things they do with their health, being strong. What if your car breaks down and you need to run 2 miles to go save a family member, yet you can't walk 100 yards? That's a problem. And so I don't think a lot of people take into account just what health does for them and the people around them in certain situations that may occur. And I actually think about that stuff a lot, as weird as that is. Is it some sort of combat situation that I have zero combat training in, but I feel like I might be ready for? Is it something falls on a family member that I feel like I need to be like, I train for that situation. And I want people to think about that because they don't. Over time, they're just like, well, we're screwed. Someone's dying today.
Well,
Yeah.
and even like less severe situations. And if there's a parent listening to this right now, man, I don't have kids, but I work with a lot of people that do have kids. Putting them in car seats in the back of the that's tricky. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard of who they're like, I was clicking my kid in or pulling them out. That like flexion and rotation through the spine with like weight out in front of you. And then their back hurts. And guess what? They can no longer take care of their family or go to work or do the things that they love to do. Now, I'm not going to say that like, well, shucks, you should have been doing bicep curls and that would have prevented it entirely. That's not what I'm saying. But with this like resistance training thing, this strength training, you just become a little bit more resilient, a little bit more durable. Man, I was on a trip not long ago and seeing people like board the plane and not be able to put their like 20-25 pound bag up in the overhead compartment.
Rough.
I mean, that was like that, like that's a little bit sad to me. You know, it's like, man, like you work so hard, you're retired, you have all of this like time and money to go on amazing trips and have incredible experiences, but like you might be a little like quote unquote shackled, right? You can't fully experience those experiences if you don't necessarily take care of yourself earlier in life. And plus, I want to be able to carry the groceries from the car into the kitchen in one trip. Too many.
One
yeah,
trip.
one and done. And so that's where that strength training and resistance, like it helps everything. The actual motivations, like what it could mean to somebody, for Tyler, picking something up off of a family member, saving a family member, putting your bag in the overhead compartment, being able to like play with your kids, get them into the car, out of the car. I mean, whatever is important to you, it's very easy to attach the value of strength or resistance training to helping that thing.
Tell you, my love language of how I give love is through like random acts of kindness. And so I love helping people, and like without being healthy and like fit or strong, like when I see someone struggling to put their bag up above in the airplane, guess who helps them out? Joseph does. And
with
it
a
fills
red
my
cape on and everything.
with a red, I got a little eye band in, I got it all. And it's amazing how much like that fills my cup to just like be able to help people through just me being healthy. I'm not giving you my money. I'm not giving you my sleep. I'm just there. You can't do it, and I can. And you like are super appreciative, right? It's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And like you get a smile and a hug or whatever the case may be. And it's just like, feels so good. And so I want to pivot on like, where do we begin? Let's say we've never saved any money. We don't exercise. Like, how do we begin? And I thought about it when Tyler was talking. My buddy asked me the other day, like, man, what do you do when you're not motivated? Like when you're just struggling, and like you just can't get anything going good. And I told him that how I personally do it. And I think a really great coach has a lot of great experience at failing. And that's what makes a great coach, you know? And so I know in my life, when I get off track or whatever the case may be, there's two things. One, minimal effective dose of a routine of like, okay, 3 times a week, 30 minutes each time at a time that works for me. It doesn't have to necessarily be 5 a.m. or 6 p.m. or lunchtime, right? We have all these like generic examples of when someone should work out. And it's just like, hey, whatever works well for you, like, let's do that, because I hate waking up in the morning. So that's number one, is just start with a minimum effective dose of a routine and whatever that looks like for you. Or number two, hijack someone else's routine. And so if you're a busy mom and you're like, man, how do all these other busy moms make time for themselves? Ask them, and then ask to join them. You go walking every night, can I join you? You go running every morning, can I join you? You go to this workout class, can I join you? And so I started doing that with my buddy. And so if you follow me on social media, like 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., like we're at the gym because I wasn't motivated to work out. And I was like, all right, man, like I'm going to join you. When do you work out? He's like 5 a.m. I hate the morning. I hate waking up. I've woken up at 4:30 a.m. since I was 14 and I still hate it to this day. I'm 31. I hate it. But you know what? If I don't go with him at 5:30 a.m., I'm not going to go at all. And so I had to make that decision. And of course I miss a day or two here and there, but 3-4 times a week I'm there. And so it's like, those are kind of like my two starting points of minimum effective dose with a routine that works really well for you, or hijack someone else's, because that's like your point of accountability. Even though my buddy's not texting me saying, are you going to show up? If I'm there, we're working out together. If I'm not there, we're not working out together. Right. He never asked a single question, but I know he's going to be there at 5:30 a.m. And so those are kind of my, I don't know, what do you guys do? Like, how do you start? How do you begin? You fall off track. You've never done it before. Like, what do you do? Because saying go buy a personal trainer for $400, $500, $800 a month, not really a great piece of advice if they can't afford it.
Troy Aikman said something at one of our conferences a few years back, and I thought it was about as simplistic as you could possibly get, because we all know he's a very busy person. He's always been a very busy person. He said something along the lines of like, with his workout routine was, did he break a sweat today? He goes, sometimes that takes me 10 minutes. Sometimes it takes me an hour. And I was like, man, that's about as basic and generic as it can possibly be. Is like, I tell my clients all the time, like, one, did you sweat today? Did you move today? Did you try and move today? That's really all I need, because if you did not think about trying to move, well, then you're not even starting. So it really doesn't matter what time of day it is to me. It's like, did you break a sweat? Did you move? Did you try and move? And then you start to get the engine going. And you have to get to the point where it's like, of course, it's not going to always be enjoyable, but it starts to be a routine and a habit. One thing I was kind of blessed with for forever is playing soccer all the way through college. I played an organized sport till I was 21, 22 years old, right? And there was this time in my life, probably from 7, 8 years old, from like 2 to 4 p.m. till I was 22. That was my workout time. And so it instilled this habit of like, between the hours of 2 and 4 p.m. every single day, there's just a switch in my brain that's like, I'm supposed to be moving right now. I'm supposed to be moving. I'm supposed to be running. I'm supposed to be lifting. I'm supposed to be doing something. And you can just attribute that to me have been trained over 20 years of an athletic sport, that routine and habit has been so ingrained in me now that I'm 35 that it can't leave, and it probably will never leave. And that's what people really need to get to, is this switch needs to go off, that it's time for you to move. It's time for you to do something. And if you don't, you feel like something in your life is missing a little bit. And I've gotten there just because I've been so blessed that over the years, it was ingrained in me. So you got to start building up that habit, is what I want people to start working on, is the habit of, did I move? Did I try and eat better? Did I make a B today? Did I make a B plus? Over and over and over and over and over till you die. Right, Cody?
Well, so something we probably should have started this podcast with, we are not financial advisors, and this is not financial advice. So if you go and buy your AMC stock or something, we didn't tell you to do that. So this is not financial advice in any regard. If you do go into a financial advisor, I'm going to speak in like very broad terms here. Like, you kind of have to go open kimono. You have to be pretty vulnerable. Like, you're going to show them like what your income is, what your assets are, how much your house is worth, how much you owe on your house, your credit card debt, your car payments. I mean, you're going to show them everything, right? And so there's like this, like, there needs to be a relationship. There has to be trust and whatnot, because nobody's going to go into a financial advisor, sit down in the chair and just say, okay, how do I make money? Right? Like, the financial advisor, in order to advise, they have to collect a lot of information, I'm assuming, right? And so same thing happens when people come in to see us for nutrition or training. Like, we have to collect a lot of information, and so we're asking a lot of questions. We want to know all of those lifestyle things. We like that 1 hour you see us in the gym, or the 30 minutes you see us in the gym, like and us trainers always say, we're like, oh, 1 hour workout's only 4% of your day. And it's like, yeah, it's only 4% of your day. You have 96% of your day on your own. And that 96% is valuable. And something that I think this is actually one of my shortcomings as a coach is I have a very strong writing reflex. And so when somebody like comes to me with a problem, my brain goes, solution here, do this thing. And so after I dig into like what their day looks like, what their goals are and whatnot, I've been trying to do a better job of saying, what do you want to work on? Like what makes sense to you? And so that I'm doing that to like, one, stop my writing reflex, bring them into the decision-making process, make them a part of like the entire journey and whatnot. It gives them autonomy and control. And I just get to like ask questions and kind of sit there and shut up, and they pick the thing that they want to start working on. Now, with that said, if they're like, well, I clearly need to work out 6 hours a day, that's the thing that I'm going to do. That's where I get to like maybe step in and kind of wrangle them in and help set expectations and maybe point them in a direction that's more reasonable and realistic. Getting information, collecting information, creating awareness. There's so much like potential in creating awareness that I feel like more people should be curious about and patient enough to establish.
Yeah, that's called motivational interviewing in the health coach world.
Oh my gosh, it's
know,
almost like, have we read the same book, Joseph?
it's like a thing. And I mean, I get on 30-minute consultations with a lot of my clients, and I was on a call last week, and she was like, I almost didn't want to have this call because what you told me to work on last month, I didn't work on it. And so I was like, what's the point of this call? And so just going through and asking those questions about, okay, like what went well, what went bad, what do you want to change of both of those things, right? Do you want to capitalize more on what you did well, or do you want to work on more on what you did bad? Like there's two different approaches. And so I think a lot of times we say, oh, work on the things you're bad at. Okay, that's not fun for many people. What if you focused on what you're really good at? What if you did that instead? And what if you were like, I'm pretty good at this, but you became great at it, you know? And so, I mean, we do it all the time. Like I'm not good at financial advice, so I have a financial advisor, right? Like we hire people for the things we're not good at. And so if you're not good at building a routine, or you're not good at finding out whatever exercises you should do to get you to your goals, like we hire help or we reach out for help. Again, find the mom who's just crushing it in all areas and hijack her routine. And then again, a small piece of giving the power back to the person. If you gave me the power, and this is probably like maybe Tyler struggles with it too. I've always had, my dad was a police officer, played sports my whole life, went to the military. There was always people bossing me around. So a piece of my personality is like, I need you to tell me what to do. Because if you leave it up to me, who knows what's going to happen? I don't know what I'm going to do. Right. And so there's a piece of that accountability that is just like, hey, you know, if I have some direction, if you could provide me some direction, some things I work on, I do better with that, which is hard as an entrepreneur, by the way, to be your own boss. But I think a lot of times, like, again, kind of wrapping this all up, because I think we're approaching our hour, is just start small, low hanging fruit, figure out what works well for you, figure out what you enjoy, which is we take that concept away from everything. Not to dog on any diets out there, but the keto diet. Every time I talk about the keto diet, I'm like, hey, what's your favorite food? Chips and salsa, sushi, pizza, ice cream, nachos, like those are all carbs. So if you remove all of those, how do you think you're going to have success following the keto diet? It's like, what do you like to do for movement? Oh, I'm a hiker, or I like to go skiing or snowboarding, like whatever the case may be. Okay, cool. Let's just go crush the gym for hours and hours. Like it doesn't make sense. Like let's do some things that you actually enjoy and let's connect those dots. And let's start there. And whether it's you writing down your routine, again, minimum effective dose of I've got 3 days a week where I've got a little bit extra time that I could probably squeeze something in, or I need like a more of a drill sergeant approach of like me asking my buddy, when do you work out? 5 a.m. I hate that about you. I'm going to be there. You know, like I've got to be there because that's the only way I'm going to be successful. And again, so kind of thinking about what will help me succeed when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old and live a really good life. Because again, the people you love the most right now are probably the people you are negatively going to affect the most when you retire.
Sustainability of compound interest over time. Got it.
So
That's
good.
exactly what I said.
Got it.
Well, so we've been chatting about this for like an hour. What are the like the very big like philosophical, if you will, but like the guiding principles that are required to, and I'm going to make it tricky. What are the principles that would allow you to be successful in health and fitness, nutrition, but perhaps also in like finance, personal finance, right? Like what would those like big values or principles, what would those things be?
And the main one to me is self-awareness, like being super transparent of what is actually happening. I think that's the 30,000-foot view of it, because if you look at, I'm a huge like saver myself, and I'm super aware of exactly how much money is in all of the accounts. At the end of every single month, I literally have a book that's like, I got this, and this. How did that month look? That month was awesome because I did these things. Next month, okay, this month was good, not as great. This is why it was not as good, because of these expenses right here. So I'm super aware of all of my finances. And I think some people do that and some people do not do that. Some people are not aware of their health and fitness at all. They're not aware of what they're actually eating. They're not aware of if they even work out. They're not aware of what they even do to work out. And so if you can't answer the questions of what you're doing to save money, to improve your health, if you can't answer those questions, well, then you can't even start to fix the problem that you may or may not have.
Tyler, I want to riff on this really quick. If somebody was like, shucks, I'm broke, and somebody asked them, they're like, well, like, when you go and like purchase things anywhere, like, do you look at the price tag? And if that person said, no, I don't look at the price tag, no one would be surprised that you were broke, right? What Tyler's saying is there is zero awareness when it comes to expenditures. Now, here's the thing. For nutrition, we often say like, I'm just not seeing progress. I'm working so hard, not seeing progress. Do you know what you are consuming? And don't look at the front of the label with all the fancy, beautiful marketing terms. Do you know where to find like your calories and your macronutrients on the back of the food? And I feel like once you create that awareness, the ability to like make changes is just so easy.
It's wild.
It's like
I have this. I've talked with family members about this. Let's take finance for a sec. Let's say for super round numbers, you make $100K a year. Okay. Let's say your fixed cost every single month of mortgage, car, and all that is $5,000. So then at the end of the year, you have a fixed cost of $60,000 that you have to spend every single month. You're left with $40,000 of that. Okay. And you ask people like, hey, like, okay, how is saving going right now? What do you got saved up? Well, I've got, how much have you saved this year? It's the end of the year. I've saved $3,000. Where's the other $37,000 that is left over? Like, where is it? Like, where did it go? And they're like, I have no idea. What do you mean you have no idea where $37,000 went? And you look at that, it's like, okay, I need to lose 40 pounds. All right, what's fixed cost? Well, it's really fixed cost in fitness is like your schedule. Okay, like what you actually do. Cost left over is hours left in the day. And you're like, okay, I need to lose 40 pounds. I've lost 2 pounds. How have you lost 2 pounds? You got these hours in the day that are available and you're not using them to the best of your benefit. You got this budget for groceries and all that, but yet you're not using it to the best of your benefit. How do we fix that? So when you look at like fixed cost compared to whatever sliding cost average, it's like you should know these things very well. And it's very clear. And if it's not where you need to be, you really need to be like just writing it down and looking at it and being self-aware.
Sure. It was so funny. I know we all have our favorite fitness tracker device. And I'm in my 16th nutrition certification, if you're curious. And I was taking it right before we hopped on this call. And the instructor, Dr. Lane Norton, if you guys are familiar with him, I'm on his second certification. He said, you know, the best way to figure out your total daily energy expenditure, like how many calories you're burning at the end of the day, it's to track your total daily energy intake and see what's happening on the scale. So track your food and you will figure out how many calories you're burning very fast. It's a very simple equation. And he's like, and guess what? If you're tracking 3,000 calories a day and you're gaining weight, you might want to eat less than 3,000 calories a day. But if you have no idea how many calories you're eating, what are you gonna, I'm gonna eat less. What does that mean? Eat less of what? When? Where? How? You like, I don't know. Oh, I didn't eat anything on Monday. Okay, but you had Taco Tuesday. And so you just, right?
Shout out Taco Tuesday.
And so it's so funny. It's like, we're all like, oh my goodness. Like, and again, we talked about fitness trackers before, but it's like data. Great. But you need to track income as well as expenditure, right? And so it's almost more powerful and more consistent than expenditure, honestly. And so if we can consistently hit 2,000 calories a day, 2,500 calories a day or whatever, and measure the results, well, we can manipulate that income. And if we do that, then we can obviously manipulate the expenditure as well. And so it's the same thing. Like, you've got $37,000 a year. Where did it go? I don't know. How do you not know? If I gave you a $37,000 raise, I promise you'd be like, I'm going to upgrade this, I'm going to upgrade that. You have it all planned out already of like how you're going to change your life if I gave you a $37,000 raise. So how do you not know? Oh yeah, it's just wild. It happens all the time. And self-awareness.
Cody, do we have a lightning round today, or do you have anything for us? No, maybe.
It's been too long.
I actually don't have anything for the financial fitness lightning round.
Okay.
But I was gonna ask Joseph. Joseph, what do you think? Like, what guiding principle do people need to have in order to be successful with health, fitness, nutrition? But then maybe also like probably finance too. Like, what's the thing that applies to both? And I have some ideas in my head that I'll shoot out there regardless. But
so Tyler, I think hit like number one is just awareness. Like, just think about it. What are you doing? Just think about it. Second thing I would say is goal setting. I would set a goal, and I would set long-term goals and short-term goals. And so, because the power in a long-term goal is it gives you direction, but the power of a short-term goal is it allows you to pivot if need be, right? And so I want to save 10 grand at the end of this year. Okay, well, how much do you want to save this month? And maybe we back that up to how much do you want to save this each week? And maybe you back it up or you tailor it to how you get paid. Do you get paid bi-weekly, monthly, the 1st and the 15th? Like, what goes on there? And then for fitness as well as, and I think a lot of times when we think about health and fitness, we automatically assume weight loss. And that's not really what weight loss is technically unhealthy. And so when we think about health and fitness, maybe it's just a goal of, I want to be a little bit stronger. I want to look a little bit better in a bikini. I want to go play with my kids or my dog or whatever the case may be, right? And how we set goals to get there. And so it's okay, well, right now I'm not working out at all. Well, by the end of the year, I want to get into a good routine of 4 or 5 times a week. Well, going from 0 to 5 times a week, not going to happen. Let's set some short-term goals. So I would say short-term goals, long-term goals would be number 2 for me.
I like it. I'll add on that maybe a question with those goals. Ultimately, like what you're trying to wind up with. One is, you mentioned a direction, a plan. Like, does a plan accompanies those goals? On you're at point A, you want to get to point B. Like, this is the roadmap. Would that be fair to say?
Yep. Definitely. Okay. Because your plan and everyone's plans, and we always like to say, like, going back to weight loss, healthy weight loss is 0.5 pound to 2 pounds per week. Well, that's 2 pounds to 10 pounds a month. That's a huge variance. And so talking about and establishing that variance and what it looks like. So, okay, well, maybe on a good month, you could lose 10 pounds per month, and that's fine. But Thanksgiving's coming up. I doubt you're going to lose 10 pounds next month, and Christmas and then New Year's. You're not so let's not set those unrealistic expectations. So let's recreate a short-term goal. Let's pivot the plan. Let's get a little bit different of a direction. Let's slow down or speed up, right? It's October right now. So maybe we can speed up right now because we're going to slow down massively in November, December. Like, so what does that look like? And I think a good coach with great awareness and great direction can help you with that.
So the ones that I'll add, one is kind of runs adjacent to Tyler, what you said, the awareness piece. I think people just have to be curious. Like, you have to be curious enough to want to know and create that awareness. And then I think the other ones is like patience. Like, yeah, I get it. We all want to like have 10 million bucks in the bank account. We all want to be financially free like yesterday, but it takes time. Weight loss takes time. Building muscle, gosh, that takes a long time. And those timelines are not what social media would probably lead most of us to believe. This is not measured in like weeks or months, but probably like this is like a year thing, measured in years, maybe decades. And then the last one, I would say, sharpen the blades of delaying gratification. And that's a really sucky one because it's not fun and it's not the one that most people want to hear, but being able to delay gratification is a pretty valuable tool, skill, principle that you want to be financially savvy. You got to probably have. And
that just triggered my brain, Cody. So sorry. I saw this reel or TikTok or something. And it said there's 2 dudes and they're both just chopping wood all day long. And one guy disappears for an hour a day and comes back and keeps chopping wood. And he always chops more wood than the guy who didn't take the hour break. And so like months go by and the guy's like, hey man, you leave for an hour a day and you come back and you still chop more wood than me. Where do you go? What do you do? He goes, I sharpen my axe.
No, I've
right.
Like, is that George Washington?
I forget. I don't know, but it's like,
Abraham
and that's where like
Lincoln.
rest comes into play.
He goes and takes a
Sleep.
nap.
Go take a nap, right? I mean, it's huge to sharpen the tools in your toolbox, right? And some of that looks like learning, and some of that looks like being curious. Like sharpen the tools in your toolbox. If you want to get better at saving money, you should probably learn about it. If you want to get better at making money, you should learn about it. You want to get healthier, you should learn about it. And it starts with curiosity. So that's pretty awesome. I
Kind
like
of
that.
another quote like that, gentlemen. Y'all have heard me say it before, but it's the man who enjoys walking will walk further than the man that enjoys the destination. So if you enjoy your fitness journey more than these proverbial goal that you want to get to, you'll go way further in life than if I were just to put you at your destination tomorrow. So yeah, that's good stuff today, boys.
Do you want to do an off the cuff lightning round?
Go for it. You got something?
I got we can round robin it if you guys have something. Why not
Okay.
contribute to the lightning round? How about so I'll go. I'll ask both of y'all first. First question coming up.
Okay.
All time. Okay, here's the lightning round. 30 seconds. Joseph, you're up first.
Ooh.
Here's the question. Do I need to eat 8 meals per day to stoke my metabolic fire? Go.
No, you need to eat whatever calories it's going to help you lose weight or gain weight or whatever case may be. Learned it today, Dr. Lane Norton, if you want to go get his certifications, that meal timing is such a small, tiny millisecond of a fraction of your overall success of weight loss versus weight gain, building muscle versus burning fat, whatever the case may be. It's almost non-existent, and all the research is short-term, and it's not long-term. So if you do see any positive short-term research, it's not long-term or sustainable.
Ooh, nailed it.
It's only because I just learned about that like 30 minutes ago, even though we've been on this call for an hour.
Okay,
Tyler,
I'm ready.
2, 1, go. Same
Yeah.
question. Same
So
question.
I'll say this. Let's look at this history of 8 meals a day. So back early 2000s, I feel is where this came from, was like, hey, let's stoke the fire, 8 meals a day. That was the big thing, metabolism boost. Now we have swung the pendulum into this like 1 meal a day. So it's like, hey, let's eat all of our calories in one specific time during the day and you'll be good to go. Well, let's take the common denominator in all of those situations, whether we're there, overall calories. So therefore, calories is king, whether it's 8 meals or 1.
Time.
Over. Too long.
Pretty good.
I went
It was a
31.
little bit over.
31. I went 31.
It was a
It's
little bit
okay.
over.
It's okay. I got one for both of y'all. I feel like it's another nutrition one. Is there a time in which you should stop eating every single day? Like, is there a time you should not eat dinner? Cody, you're up first. Is there a time you should not eat dinner? Ready, go.
Okay, so commonly we hear like don't eat after 6 p.m. This can be a valuable tool for some people who rely on that rule, but ultimately what it does is it prevents us from overeating common things that are often eaten late at night. And I guess the only situation that I would really recommend somebody not eat late at night is if it creates like GI distress or like heartburn from laying down in bed. That might be a situation where you want to stop eating before a certain time.
Time.
I was at a fitness event last night, and my main man Edwin, go check him out on Instagram. Edwin, I don't even know his last name, but he was like, man, I love talking to like really smart people, because when you talk about really smart people, they have really simple answers.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like the dumb ones have a really complicated answer for you. And you're like, or like what? Like Cody's like, no, not really. You just eat bad. You tend to eat bad the later at night. And then if you have GI issues or like acid reflux, like you probably shouldn't eat before you go to bed. Like that's so simple. It's so common sense. It's like so funny.
I know, like, caveat, then I got 5 seconds and then you'll have your 30 seconds. I know someone is really, really smart when they say like, it depends. I'm like, yeah, you know what you're talking about.
Dude,
literally.
The caveat to that is, because I agree, but they have to then go and clarify like what it depends upon. That's
Right. You can just say like, it depends, and then make some stuff up every single time.
Yeah.
Like you've got to then go on afterwards. Joseph, is there a time you should stop eating in the day? Ready, set, go.
I always say no, because what about all of our overnight workers, overnight nurses, overnight construction workers? Like, what are they just can't eat now. because they're working all night. So when are they supposed to eat? Oh, you can't, right? Or you got to go in at 5 p.m. Well, when are you supposed to eat breakfast? Right? And so no. And I just second everything Cody said of, hey, the snacks you're eating late at night are probably not healthy for you. And then two, if you have any sort of GI issues, it messes up your sleep, and sleep is so important, Cody. Or you have acid reflux, like obviously don't eat before bed.
Oh, you went over a second. You lose.
I'm
Sorry.
catching up to you, buddy. All right. I got one for both of you guys, and I'll take
Okay.
it to fitness. Since we are on this big craze of booty builder programs, I want to know the best exercise. Tyler goes first. Best exercise for building glutes.
I'm going to say kind of it depends because I don't want to say there is one best exercise. One I like building for me that I think is just booty builder is just a straight up progressively overloaded back squat. I think just a good old put some weight on your back, sit down and stand up, baby. That'll build it. That's all I got with 5 seconds to spare.
Time to spare.
I
That was
feel like
good.
Cody thought you were going to say a different answer, so I'm ready to hear what Cody's going to say.
So I actually liked Tyler's answer. Ultimately, the exercise that the person enjoys doing, that's probably hip extension based, that they enjoy doing, and that we can progressively overload over time while they're in an energy surplus. With that said, like, man, honestly, like a heavy barbell hip thrust is pretty awesome. But I would honestly use more than one exercise. I'd use a few.
Time. I'll say that to caveat because we'll maybe have some people comment here like, no, we think hip thrust, no, we think RDLs, we think deadlift, we think trap bar, we think back squat, we think leg press. I guarantee you, like, there's a lot of professional athletes that have never done a hip thrust in their entire life. They're the strongest glutes on the planet. And then there's this girl on Instagram, great glutes, probably has never done a trap bar, deadlift, or squat in her entire life. So there's really no specific answer.
I'm not a big proponent for myself for hip bridges and hip thrusts. And when I see girls like hip thrusting like 200, 300 pounds, I'm like, whoa, like my pelvis hurts.
This is an important caveat to this whole thing though. If you want to grow any body parts, certainly the glutes, my goodness, like give your body a reason and like a fighting chance, and like make sure that you're actually like eating for it, and that your body is in a place to accrue lean body mass. Like you're not going to do a great job of building, a giant shelf back there if you're chronically trying to lose weight.
Hey, are you teasing the next podcast? Is that what we should tease it with? Energy intake and expenditure for muscle growth and exercises to do so?
Ooh, maybe.
Yeah.
So okay.
As long as we can nerd out and talk about proper leucine dosages. Just kidding.
We're gonna go off in a rabbit hole if we even start talking about that. Let's leave that there, boys. We're gonna tease up the next one. We're gonna put a bow on this, land this plane. I'm cutting y'all off. We're out of here, guys. That wraps up episode 6, the FitChat podcast. Throw some comments in there, like, subscribe, all of the things. All right. Share with your family and friends. Maybe if this resonated to you, throw some comments in there on maybe some podcasts you would like to see us talk about down the road. I think we just tease our next one. Guys, thanks for being with us today, gentlemen. It was good to see y'all, and I will see y'all next time.
Adios.
Peace out.